The Tolkien Road Podcast, Episode 17, The Silmarillion, Chapter 8, of The Darkening of Valinor. All right, go ahead. The Tolkien Road, 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 the Tolkien Road of Tolkien, the 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 Tolkien Road. The Tolkien Road. Hi everyone, John Carswell here. Welcome to the Tolkien Road Podcast, your conversational guide to Middle-earth and the works of J.R.R. Tolkien. On this episode of the podcast, we continue our discussion of the Silmarillion with Chapter 8, wherein Melkor and the giant spider Ungoliant throw the Blessed Realm into overwhelming darkness. And just in case you missed the last episode, this is indeed the podcast that used to be known as Talking Tolkien. You can listen to episode 16 to learn more about our recent name change. Lastly, please leave us a rating and feedback on iTunes. We'd love to know what you think of the Tolkien Road. Enjoy the show! All right, everyone, welcome to another episode of the Tolkien Road Podcast. Bet you thought I was going to say Talking Tolkien.
I thought you were going to say Talking Tolkien.
No. Used to be Talking Tolkien, formerly known as Talking Tolkien, but now known as the Tolkien Road. Thanks for listening. And thanks for continuing on with us through this name transition. As we're recording this, I don't actually have new theme music, finished or completed. So I don't know if between recording this and actually posting it, if I have actually created new theme music. So,
are you actually going to change the theme music?
I don't know. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do yet.
I don't think you should. I think there will be an uprising. Why can't we just change the words? The voiceover.
These are creative things that we need to discuss offline.
I, for one, love the theme music, and I would hate to
I
see
love
it
it
go
too.
away.
I love it too. I'm not saying it's going away. I'm just saying we will make the right decision.
All right.
We'll make the right decision. So I don't know if there's going to be new theme music by the time I release this on, even if it's the same music but different words. That's even if it's, the Tolkien Road set to the same music. I'm just saying I don't know if it's going to be any different or if it's still just going to be the Talking Tolkien theme song.
I see. Okay.
So, guess we'll see.
Yeah, that's something to look forward to.
Yeah, it's kind of like makes it kind of like Back to the Future to do this,
Does it? I
think so. Like, I don't know what the future will. It's like I'm talking to people in the future. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, right. But by the time this episode posts, people will know. Mm-hmm. So this will almost seem...
It's like a time capsule.
Kind of. So this will seem a bit antiquated, this conversation we're having right here.
Yeah. It's like, hello, May of 2015. This is April 2015. Talking at you. What else changed in the world since in 2 days?
2 days.
Yeah.
Weird.
All right. Tonight we're going to be discussing, on this podcast, we gave it away that it's at night, that we record at night. Man.
Oh. Have we not given that away yet?
I'm sure we have.
I'm sure we have. But it's appropriate that we will be discussing this particular chapter at night.
Yes, because it's Chapter 8 of the Darkening of Valinor.
Exactly.
Yes. Darkness. Yes.
Darkness, no parents.
Darkness, no parents. Yeah.
Yeah.
So big chapter here. Big stuff's happening in the history of Middle-earth. So.
Yep.
We're gonna get right to that, but we're gonna start by getting right to that by doing haikus. By haiku time.
Ding-a-ling-ling.
Ding-a-ling. What?
Haiku time.
Yeah. You want to
You need to do theme music.
Theme music for haiku
Until
time.
you do theme music for haiku time, that's going to be my music. Ding-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling, haiku time.
Maybe I'll just record you doing that and play it back.
Now
I've got it recorded, so maybe.
Well, maybe you should give me time to practice before you actually record me for posterity's sake.
All right.
Anyway.
Do you want to do?
How many do you have?
I have 3.
I have 3 too.
Oh.
Should we flip a block or?
Well, I think that block is probably red and has a hole on both sides.
On both sides.
Yeah.
Baseball card. Oh, wait, we already tried that.
Well, I think
Let's do rock, paper, scissors.
Okay.
All right. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
Well, wait, are we doing it on 3 or are we doing it
No, it's rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
I see, okay,
3.
all right.
Do you not know how to play rock, paper, scissors?
No, everybody does it differently.
Sure.
That's not how I did it growing up. I could throw in the grenade. That blows up everything. So
that's cheating. All right.
School bus rules. All right.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Oh!
I win. Paper beats rock.
Paper, scissors, rock. All right.
Wait, so that means you go first.
That means I go first.
Yeah.
Okay.
That means I defer till the second half.
Okay. I think I'll do. Let me see. All right, I'll do my first one first. All right. It's 575, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. Melkor craves revenge. Ungoliant helps him plot. Light will be no more.
Mm-hmm.
Did I say Ungoliant right?
That's a good question.
Because I counted it as 4
Ungoliant.
syllables.
I might say it Ungoliant.
But it's still 4 syllables.
Ungoliant, yes.
Because when I tried Googling that on howmanysyllables.com, they were like, we have no idea. We've never seen this word before, ever.
That's right. Tolkien weirdo. All right. Pretty good. I thought you were going to kind of go a direction with Melkor craves revenge and then like Ungoliant craves light, and kind of like...
Oh, that would have been
two cravings
very clever.
Together, yeah.
I must have been off my game tonight.
You're off your game. Yeah.
Darn it.
All right, well, you got 2 more to go, so here's mine. I'll do my first. Is darkness merely a lack of light, or perhaps a being itself?
Is darkness merely... Is that your 5?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, is darkness merely a lack of light?
Or perhaps a being itself?
Oh, that's really good.
Yeah. Well, that was kind of something that was an issue that kind of subtly came out in the text, so I think we'll talk about that later.
Yeah. Maybe I'll do my last one next, because mine...
You do in whatever order you want to.
I know, it's actually my third one, but it kind of goes with that one.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, I want to bring up the fact that you write your haikus differently than I do. Because I make my sentences, each sentence 5. In that next sentence 7, and the next, whereas you run yours together. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you don't have to. You don't
I know
have to
you
make
don't have
them
to do
complete
it.
sentences each line.
I think that makes yours superior to mine, though, because mine are very
maybe not. That's not the only part of it. I just like doing that because it can give you. It makes the individual lines juxtapose with the meaning of the actual complete thoughts, so that it gives it a little more poetic flavor. I feel like
it does,
what I'm saying?
But I can't.
So the first line of that one was, "Is darkness merely?" Right? Which that's if you're speaking in normal language, you can't diagram it. But even so, if you just saw that, that would actually be kind of an interesting thought. You could you could diagram that though, because is a verb, right? Is darkness merely? Right?
But merely what? Oh, there's no direct object.
Well, yeah, okay, maybe not. All right, let's not worry about diagramming it right now.
Okay.
But my point is you could do something that's a thought in and of itself. Even though it may not be an exactly
I see what
complete
you're saying.
grammatical sentence.
I might try to do that next time.
Yeah. Anyway, so next time.
Okay. All right. Darkness engulfs them, a living, breathing darkness, just like my precious.
Nice.
Thanks.
A living, breathing darkness, just like my precious. What do you say? So you're saying just are you referring to the ring?
Yes.
And saying that engulfs them?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I'm saying that that's again me. That is me putting my own interpretation of how I read that. Because that's kind of the way that it describes this darkness that engulfs them is very much how I think of the ring. As the same kind of thing. like where it talked about, like, basically, consuming their entire will, right?
Mm-hmm.
And entering the mind and heart.
Yes.
So.
Yes, I like that.
I saw that parallel in my mind.
Very nice.
Thank you.
All right, I'm pretty proud of this next one.
All right, go for it.
When Melkor took flight, the Valar thought he went north. They were right and wrong.
I love it. Oh, man. Burt Macklin.
That's right.
FBI.
Burt Macklin haiku right there. Yeah.
That's awesome. I love it. They were right.
You want to read it again?
And wrong. Yes, you need to read it again. This time do it in Burt Macklin voice.
When Melkor took flight, the Valar thought he went north. And they were right. And wrong.
You had an extra syllable in there.
Oh, I did. Sorry. They were right.
They were right. And wrong.
My screen went off right as I was reading it, so I got it wrong.
Yeah. That's awesome. I totally dig that. You're making me want to watch Parks and Rec all over again.
Yep.
Alright, good stuff. Alright, my last one.
Mm-hmm.
The trees. Oh, the trees. Of all the things, he wants these. So ends the party.
The parties?
Parties.
I think it's kind of funny because I think with haiku, like, it's not like it's against the rules of haiku to have them rhyme or anything like that, but I think like making haikus rhyme especially too much or too blatantly can almost cheapen them or make them seem sillier.
That was trying to be silly.
I know.
Yeah. So thank you. I achieved my goal.
Good.
The trees.
Well, I was trying to make it lame, so there you go.
Yeah, exactly.
In your face.
I didn't want you to like it anyway. So
All
I
right.
like to rhyme.
Last one.
All the time. No,
Melkor.
Sorry.
Excuse me. That was rude.
I didn't know you were going to start.
Now you know my first line's about Melkor.
I was too busy rhyming. You had very bad timing.
Stop. All right. Melkor got away. There's only one thing to do. Let's get our groove on.
Mine was cheesier. No, yours was cheesier. Let's get our groove on.
Right. Because, it's like Melkor gets away and they're like, all right, let's go throw a party. Really bad guy who previously tried to destroy the world and everything and us got away and, oh man, we couldn't find him.
We're not going to let that ruin our party.
That's right. Let's go have a party.
Let's go have a harvest festival.
Yes. Yes, indeed.
Which is probably like the only somewhat positive thing that happens in this whole chapter. A party.
Well, so let's start on the chapter itself.
Let's do it.
So what'd you think? What'd you think overall?
Good.
Yeah?
It was really good.
Yeah, things really get moving here. Mm-hmm. It's kind of funny. Chapter 8, they really get moving, and then chapter 9 is like boom, boom, all this stuff happens, and then chapters 10 through 12 are and then Jehoshaphat begot so and so, it's not really that bad, but it's still it's nowhere near as action packed as the next two chapters are.
So can I go ahead and hand in my resignation, my 2 weeks notice?
For what?
For not reading chapters 10 through 12.
No, you're going to read them.
Okay.
And you're going to like it.
Well, you know what? I'm going to make all my haikus rhyme.
Fair, fine.
I'm going to do it.
That would be a crime.
But it would also be mighty fine.
Mighty fine. That doesn't actually rhyme.
It kind of does. It rhymes enough.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's talk about the chapter.
All right.
What's it called again? The Darkening
of the
Darkening
of
Valinor.
Yeah. So, all right. So it kicks off, and Melkor had just kind of gotten away in the nick of time before the Valar realized what he was up to,
Right.
And
right before this, he had been to Feanor's house, right?
Right.
Trying to get the Silmarils.
Exactly. And he had been sowing all this discontent among the Noldor. And then the Valar finally realized, oh, it's Melkor who's causing all these problems, right? He's like pitting people against one another, right. And he's doing his Melkor thing.
Right.
And so chapter 8 starts off with that Orome and Tulkas are chasing after him, but they're not able to track him down.
Right.
And the reason they're not able to track him down is because he went north from Valinor, and which is where they would have thought he would go, because he has this fortress in Valinor, or not in Valinor, but north across. If you go across the Helcarax, right, this big ice waste up in the very far north, he has this fortress, right, that they think he's going to be heading to, right?
Yep.
But Melkor's tricksy and crafty, and so he knows that's what they're going to be thinking. So he decides to double back,
right?
And so he first goes north, and then he doubles back, changes shape, which he can do still, crosses back through Valinor in a kind of a hidden disguise, and then goes south from Valinor. Okay, so just a little geography lesson. All right, there's no map in the book, the Silmarillion, that covers this part of the world. Okay, which makes it really hard to sometimes get your bearings. I'm not sure why they didn't include one, because like half the book takes place in Valinor, so it's like you think there's all these place names, so you think they want to at least give us an idea of how they're all situated.
Yeah,
but they don't.
Right.
The only map that we really have covers the other half of the world, right? Don't you be yawning. This is exciting stuff.
Geography, schmography.
Sorry. Was it geography? That was the mere mention of geography makes you yawn.
I guess.
Well, anyway, he went north, went back south, and now he's traveling south from Valinor. He's still across the Great Sea from like the Middle Earth, like Beleriand and the other places that we're familiar with where the elves came from.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. But he goes south, and he pays a visit to a certain someone who is kind of hidden down there, a certain not so good individual. So, what'd you think of Ungoliant?
Ungoliant's creepy.
Yeah,
totally creepy. It reminded me of Shelob. Are they related at all?
Yeah. Spoiler, I guess, kind of. Yes, Ungoliant is I'm pretty sure is the mother of Shelob.
Okay,
right.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, so
be the case.
Yeah, we'll Ungoliant will continue on a little more in the Silmarillion. So we'll talk. We'll get kind of into more of that of her outcome and what ended up happening. I think you can pretty much. I haven't researched this, double checked this, but I'm pretty sure you can trace back all of like the giant spiders and Tolkien's lore back to Ungoliant. Okay.
So like the matriarch of giant scary spiders.
Yes. Yeah, I think giant scary spiders is like kind of redundant. Like
it's totally redundant.
Yeah, like giant spiders is just scary in and of itself to think about. Like spiders for me is scary in and of itself to think about. So
yes.
Yeah, giant spider would be like terrifying. Like curl up in a ball. Like, oh my gosh, this is the most horrible thing I've ever seen.
Agreed.
Yeah. So he goes and visits Ungoliant, and Ungoliant isn't. She is a giant. She has the shape of a giant spider, but she isn't really a giant spider. Okay. I don't think it comes right out and says this, but did you pick up kind of what her origin was, or what they think her origin was?
Well, I was a little confused about that, because I know it says that they don't really know where she came from, but they're saying that maybe she like crawled out of the darkness that was over the earth before the Valar came.
Well, it says the Eldar knew not when she came, but some have said that in ages long before she descended from the darkness that lies about Arda, when Melkor first looked down in envy upon the kingdom of Manwë.
So maybe she was a product of his envy?
Well, So I don't think so, because it says right after that, and at the beginning she was one of those whom he corrupted to his service. So do you remember in Valaquenta when it talks about Melkor had corrupted some of the Maiar and others to his service, like Sauron, right, was one of the Maiar.
And he tried to do that with one of.
Well, he tried to do that with Olmo's Ase.
Right, Ase. Right. Mm-hmm.
So apparently Ungoliant was maybe a Maya, right? Maybe she was a Maya previously, whom he corrupted to his service. Okay. But she is not really in his service anymore. She works for no one except for herself, right? It says that she is mistress of her own lust, right? Taking all things to herself to feed her emptiness, all right? So she just has this like insatiable hunger, and especially a hunger for light. But I love the line at the end of that first paragraph about her, that second paragraph on this page. For she hungered for light and hated it.
Yeah, I read that 3 times.
Yeah.
So I was like, that seems kind of, what's the word? When they're opposites.
Oh, like paradoxical?
Yeah, paradoxical.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I agree,
or almost an oxymoron, kind of like.
Right, but I think it's very, it reminds me a lot of. In fact, I think I wrote about this in my book on Beren and Luthien, because I talked some about the background of the Silmarils and the Darkening of Valinor, and I think I made the comparison to like one of the characters from the characters from Dante's Inferno. Right? Where they go, he goes down in hell and he sees all these people suffering different things. I don't think I had a particular one in mind, but it just seems like, that she's this, she's this individual that's like so absorbed in her own needs and her own hunger that it just becomes this like death spiral, I think of like somebody who maybe is an addict of something, like, an alcoholic or a drug addict or something like that, right? How part of them, they hunger for something, but at the same time they hate it because they're a slave to it,
Yes.
It's like this thing that they can't live without, or they feel like they can't live without, but they can't escape it, right? They want to be able to escape it, but they can't.
Right.
Right.
It's that vicious cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's almost like Ungoliant has just like given herself over to it. So because she doesn't, you think that if she was hungry for light, she would go to where the light is easily. But It says that, but she had crept south, or she had left Valinor. She had kind of gone south from that area in order to escape. It said she fled to the south, escaping the assaults of the Valar and the hunters of Orome, for their vigilance had ever been to the north, and the south was long unheeded. I guess then what that's saying is that she felt threatened by the keepers of Valinor, right? So that's why she had gone to the south originally, but she kept on creeping closer and closer, right? You talked about Gollum, and I think you alluded to Gollum. Yeah. I think that Ungoliant is a very Gollum-esque figure, maybe on a much greater scale, but still a very Gollum-esque, figure. Given that, Gollum is like the precious, but at the same time he's a slave to it, and he's so, I think he's almost too small of stature to realize what the harm it's done for him, so he's not able to like kind of see it maybe as this thing that he hates. Although, we'll see when we actually get to the Lord of the Rings and read the Lord of the Rings how we feel about that. But Ungoliant is like Gollum on a larger, scale with greater stature, right?
Interesting. Okay.
Do you see that?
Yeah. I do.
Yeah. So, I just think Ungoliant's a really interesting figure, also because Melkor is not able to really master her, right? She's her own agent. She wants to do her own thing.
Right. Yeah, it even talks about how he put on his form. They are like a special form that he had worn as the tyrant of Autumno. How do you say Autumno?
Autumno.
Because like a dark lord, tall and terrible. It was like he was trying. He was trying to master her. He was trying to appear big and bad, and like a tyrant.
Right.
But even that didn't work with her because she was too great.
Yeah.
For him.
Well, and it says of her, she took on this spider. She took on the shape of a spider of monstrous form, weaving her black webs in a cleft of the mountains. There she sucked up all light that she could find and spun it forth again in dark nets of strangling gloom, until no light more could come to her abode, and she was famished. But it's really interesting to read this and then go and read the chapter in Shelob's lair in Lord of the Rings, and just read the description of, like, the movie doesn't really do it. I mean, the movie is really it's a horrible place, obviously, but it doesn't quite do the same justice to Tolkien's description in the book. I mean, it's almost like this. It's not just like this like really nasty place to be, and you're like, ew, this is gross, and I'm afraid there's a spider. Like it's like it sucks this like spirit out of you. Right. It's like sucks your will to live. Right. Wayne's World reference.
Nicely done.
It's sucking my will to live. That's kind of the idea. It's like it's strangling gloom, right? Dark nets of strangling gloom until no light more could come to her abode. And remember, light is both this like just the light that that emanates the form of energy that's light, but it's also light has a spiritual value in Tolkien's.
Yeah, we talked about that in the last.
We talked about that in the last one, right? So whenever we read light, I think there's multiple levels in which we can understand it here.
Right.
Anyway,
it's interesting because we think of light can be, it can have its own being in and of itself, right? Like it can give life. Light can give life, and this darkness, the way it's described, is like the exact opposite of it, right? It's darkness that sucks life out of things,
right?
Like it's an actual living, breathing thing. It's not just a state of being, or it's not just a way to describe something, but it's like an actual palpable darkness.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll come back to that darkness later in the chapter. So, while we're talking about forms, Ungoliant, and who knows why she took on that particular form? That's an interesting question in and of itself. Was she forced to take that form? Did she take that form in some service to Melkor, and then it backfired on her, and she can't leave that form anymore? I mean, that's
in the form of a spider.
Yeah, like I'm just kind of throwing. I hadn't even thought to ask this question before, but it's like, why did she even take on the form of a spider in the first place? Like all these other figures are taking on these like godlike, beautiful godlike, figures, and she takes on the form of a spider, a giant spider. And the only thing, it'd be interesting to know what Tolkien's reasoning for that. What if he actually developed that backstory at all somewhere? My thought is maybe she, and I'm just completely hypothesizing off the cuff here, but maybe she took that form as a way of being at Melkor's service, like being this, he likes to create like really like Balrogs and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe she took that form as a way of being very fearsome and everything, and then she found that she couldn't leave the form; she was stuck in that form. And maybe that's part of the reason that she's so full of spite and hate towards him, but also towards others, right? Because no one wants to hang around a giant spider, obviously. So,
well, you don't think she would have taken the form because, like, to be terrifying? Like she would.
Well, no, I'm saying I think she took the form to be terrifying, but I don't think, would she take it with the intent of staying in that form forever, right?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I guess it would have to depend on what her purpose in life is. Right? I mean, if she wants to be a horrible, terrifying creature that, that everyone just runs at the sight of, then yeah. I mean, why wouldn't she stay like that? I mean, she has 8 legs, right? That's very efficient.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying, like, why would one willingly take on that form for any other reason but want to stay that way? Like, that's the strange...
Other than to invoke fear in the hearts of everyone you meet.
Exactly, but I'm saying I'm just saying, why would she want to stay that way? Was she forced to stay that way or not? Right.
I see what you're saying.
That's my point, especially if she was a Maya in the first place. Right.
Okay. Yeah.
Sauron doesn't stay that way. Sauron, and Melkor, we'll find, both take on they're still humanoid, right? They still have a human-esque form, right? Which we can take to be kind of a beautiful form, right? Yes. But she takes on this hideous form. What was the reason for that, and did she intend to stay that way? It would just be an interesting question to explore. Is all I'm saying.
Yeah, that's what you're saying.
Yeah. So, Melkor takes on. He put on again the form that he had worn as the tyrant of Autumno, a dark lord, tall and terrible. In that form he remained ever after. All right, so and we'll find out, I think, a little bit in the next chapter about why that is. But he goes to Ungoliant's lair, and he kind of recruits her for a task, right? And he promises her, and she doesn't want to go at first, right? Because she doesn't want to get in trouble with, she's scared of the foes of Aman, the dreadful lords, and the perils of Aman. It's not an easy place to get to from where she is, right?
Right.
And Melkor says to her, "Do as I bid, and if thou hunger still when all is done, then I will give thee whatsoever thy lust may demand, yea, with both hands." I like that, with both hands, right? That means I'm just not going to hold anything back. Right. I'm going to give it to you. Yep. And it says, of course, lightly he made his vow, as he ever did, and he laughed in his heart. And then thus did the great thief set his lure for the lesser. Great line. This chapter is full of great lines. What
does that mean?
Thus did
the great thief set his lure for the lesser.
What do you think it means?
Well, he himself is Melkor is the great thief, right?
Right.
Set his lure for the lesser. See, that's this. I don't understand the lure.
So he was trying to ensnare Ungoliant in his plot, right? Because he needed her to carry out, as we see, right, to get to where he wanted to go.
So lure meaning like a trap,
right,
or a bribe, kind of, and then Ungoliant being the lesser.
Yeah, but he's got his own designs, and they do not include giving Ungoliant everything that she wants.
Oh, of course they do. Right. We know how Melkor operates.
Yes, we do. Let's see. So let's talk a little bit about the Unlight, and then we'll take a quick commercial break. Okay. So a cloak of darkness she wove about. So she agrees, and it says, a cloak of darkness she wove about them when Melkor and Ungoliant set forth. An Unlight in which things seemed to be no more, in which eyes could not pierce, for it was void. So again, we see that there's this just he uses that term, the Unlight. Unlight. Right. Yeah. And later on, we're going to see he almost refers to this darkness that she casts as its own thing. We're accustomed to thinking of, well, I won't say we're all accustomed to it, but definitely there's a strong way of looking at evil that says that it's a lack of good, right? That it's a lack of something good, right? Yeah. I would say that's probably the prevailing view in Christianity, right? Is that evil is not a created thing; it's a lack of good, right? Right. It's a thing that maybe comes into creation, into being through evil act, but even in and of itself, it doesn't have its own consistency, right? It doesn't have its own reality. It's just it stands opposed to that which is good,
right?
But here, it's almost like she does create this unlight that is cast about them, right?
It's almost like a cloak, like an invisibility cloak.
Yeah, or almost even like a black hole, right? I don't know if Tolkien would have known anything about the idea of a black hole in his time when he wrote this. I'm guessing probably. I mean, he was a very smart man, but the idea of it reminds me of a black hole, where so the black hole is like this gravity well, right, where that's at the center of galaxies and that kind of thing, where it's just like light can't even escape. It's the gravity is so heavy that light can't even escape it, right? So anyway, it's kind of like she creates this like black hole around them in a way. And so they come up to the south, and it says there the Valar were not vigilant, right? For west of the Pelori was an empty land in twilight, and eastward the mountains looked out, save for forgotten Avathar, only upon the dim waters of the pathless sea. So Ungoliant kind of sets all of these webs and creates kind of all these rope ladders for them to climb up and then climb down into the region of Valmar, where the two trees and all the rest of the Valar are.
So, why were they not vigilant, the Valar? Is it because it was kind of an empty space and they were like, oh, there's nothing here that can really be damaged, or...
Yeah. I think that's the idea. I don't think they were aware of any dangers in that direction, right? Because all they knew was that from the north, there could be... There's in the far north, there's kind of a bridge over to Middle Earth, so all of the nasties that Melkor had created and left behind could, in theory, come over that way and then come down through the north, right?
I see. Okay. Okay.
But to their knowledge, there was no way that anyone could come up from the south because they didn't know that Ungoliant had gone there in the first place, I'm supposing.
I see. Okay. Got it.
So we kind of leave off there. We're gonna pause there and take a quick commercial break. Here we are, Ungoliant and Melkor, looking out over the lands of Valmar and kind of looking down on the two trees, ready to strike.
Scary.
Yeah. So, commercial time. We will be right back.
Don't go away.
Do you know the tale that Tolkien called the kernel of the Middle-earth mythology? Beren and Luthien is the story of an outlaw mortal and an elvish princess tasked with obtaining a Silmaril, one of the holy jewels of the Blessed Realm, from the Iron Crown of the Dark Lord Morgoth. In my new book, Tolkien's Requiem, I explore the legend of these doomed lovers. In doing so, I aim to provide a backdoor into the world of the Silmarillion for those who have struggled to give it a go. One of Tolkien's greatest achievements, the story of Beren and Luthien, deserves to be as well known as The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. Get your copy of Tolkien's Requiem today by visiting truemyths.org/Beren. That's truemyths.org/BEREN. Happy reading! All right, we're back. So we left off with Melkor and Ungoliant looking down.
So they're like standing on top of a mountain. Is that what they're doing?
Kind of. But now upon the mountaintop dark Ungoliant lay, and she made a ladder of woven ropes and cast it down, and Melkor climbed upon it and came to that high place and stood beside her, looking down upon the guarded realm. Yeah, so they're looking down, and all the while, as one of my haikus mentioned, the Valar had decided to have a party. Yeah. It was a time of festival, as Melkor knew well. Though all tides and seasons were at the will of the Valar, and in Valinor there was no winter of death. Nonetheless, they dwelt then in the kingdom of Arda, and that was but a small realm in the halls of Ea, whose life is time, and which flows ever from the first note to the last chord of Eru. So here they are. They decided to have a party.
Well, it's harvest time.
Yeah, but it continues, right? It also Manwë decreed a feast more glorious than any that had been held since the coming of the Eldar to Aman. For though the escape of Melkor portended toils and sorrows to come, and indeed none could tell what further hurts would be done to Arda ere he could be subdued again, at this time Manwë designed to heal the evil that had arisen among the Noldor. So he does this in order to kind of help smooth things over among everybody, right?
Right. He's trying to heal.
Yeah, heal all the divisions and that sort of thing. And he asks everyone to come to his halls upon Tanaquetil, and put aside the griefs that lay between the princes and forget utterly the lies of their enemy. So he's trying to unite them and say, hey, look, all of this was all Morgoth's fault. Melkor's fault. I'm sorry.
Okay.
It was all Melkor's fault, right?
Right.
So let's all come together. Now, what he doesn't do, he does not say that Feanor, don't worry about that punishment we doled out to you, right?
Right, but he invites him, right?
He does. In fact, Feanor is the only one Manwë had commanded to come. It says that a couple of paragraphs down, right? Feanor came indeed, for him alone Manwë had commanded to come.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
But Finwë, King Finwë, his father, king of the Noldor, came not, nor any others of the Noldor of Formenos, right? For said Finwë, while the ban lasts upon Feanor my son, that he may not go to Tirion, I hold myself unkinged, and I will not meet my people. Mm-hmm. All right? So...
he's like protesting.
Right.
Right? His son's banishment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Teleri...
they didn't come either.
They didn't come either, right?
They're too busy dancing by the sea and singing songs.
Yeah. For they recked little of seasons or times, and gave no thought to the cares of the rulers of Arda, or the shadow that had fallen on Valinor, for it had not touched them as yet. The Teleri are kind of an odd group because they're just they just like to hang out by the sea. They're almost there, but they're not quite there, and they're kind of happy with that. They like being where they are, and they don't care too much about. And remember, that makes sense because they are being the elves of the sea. They are most akin to Ulmo, right?
Right.
They want to be by the sea, right? Like Ulmo does not constantly hang out with the rest of the Valar.
Right. Yeah.
The Teleri.
Sailor.
Exactly. The Teleri want to be close to the sea, probably close to their lord, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So Feanor comes, and Finwë decides he's not going to come.
Right.
It's kind of a sign of protest to show solidarity with his son, Feanor.
Yeah, and Feanor came, but he didn't get dressed up.
Yeah.
Right? He's
No,
like,
he did
fine, I'll
not.
come to your stupid party, but don't expect me to wear my tux.
So the leadership of the Noldor are all a little bit kind of trying to make a statement, with this festival. Mm-hmm. Furthermore, Feanor denied the sight of the Silmarils to the Valar and the Eldar,
right, and
left them locked in Formenos in their chamber of iron. Feanor, man, we thought...
Get over yourself, dude.
Dude, we only invited you because we thought you were going to bring the Silmarils.
So now, not only are you not wearing your tux,
right,
but you don't have the Silmarils.
Right.
It's unacceptable.
That is totally effed up.
Mm-hmm.
Feanored up.
That's totally, that's totally unrighteous.
Yeah. That is, you just not going to have any fun Finarfin with that.
No,
so
not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. I mean, you can't Finarf if you don't have a tux on and you're not hanging and you don't have the Silmarils, so.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Basically, it's a wasted trip for him.
Yeah.
And he should just turn around and leave.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. So,
but some good does happen, kind of, right?
Well, yeah, good point. What good happens?
He and his half brother. It's Fingolfin.
Fingolfin.
Yeah, it was Fingolfin. They basically they make peace, right?
Half brother in blood, full brother in heart will I be. Thou shalt lead, and I will follow. May no new grief divide us. I like Fingolfin. I mean, he's always trying. Even before now. He was trying to smooth it over with Feanor and be like, we may not see eye to eye on everything, but you are the firstborn. And he makes it clear, and he makes it perfectly clear for the sake that they could be unified, right?
Yes.
And that the rest of the Noldor could be unified.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
May no new grief divide us. Thou shalt lead, and I will follow. And Feanor says, I hear thee, so be it. It's funny because Fingolfin is like, look, let's put all this behind us, man. You're the boss. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna follow you, right?
Yep.
Wherever you deign to lead. Have no fear about that. Let's not make that an issue. And Feanor's like, all right, it's about time you said that to me.
What took you so long?
Like, jerk. I mean, Feanor just has an attitude problem.
Yeah,
like,
he does.
time.
It's almost like he was expecting that.
Yeah. And then it ominously says, but they did not know the meaning that their words would bear. Fingolfin says, I will follow you, thou shalt lead, and I will follow. Right? Mm-hmm. May no new grief divide us. So those are words that pretty much you can't break, right, at that point.
It appears that they may come back to haunt him.
Yes, perhaps. Mayhap they will, mayhap they won't. All right. So, even as they were there having those words, both trees were shining, and the silent city of Valinor was filled with a radiance of silver and gold. Right, so it's the mingling of the two lights that
it's like
perfect.
This beautiful time of day.
Yes,
right?
Exactly. Favorite time of lights like that over the Rhine song.
Yes. Yeah.
Somehow that seems wrong to invoke here with what's about to happen. In that very hour, Melkor and Ungoliant came hastening over the fields of Valinor as the shadow of a black cloud upon the wind fleets over the sunlit earth. And they came before the green mound Ezelohar. Then the unlight of Ungoliant rose up even to the roots of the trees, and Melkor sprang upon the mound, and with his black spear he smote each tree to its core, wounded them deep, and their sap poured forth as it were their blood, and was spilled upon the ground. So, I just don't, it's like, why wouldn't they have set some kind of guard,
Yeah. I mean,
especially with Melkor out and about,
And this is like
and I guess maybe it's because they figured the guard was all up north. And, if they were there, then they would know well before they got to the two trees that there was an issue. So maybe that was why. But, yeah, Melkor stabs the two trees. Their sap spills forth all over the place, and then Ungoliant comes and sucks it up and goes to the tree. She sucks up all the light that spills out, all the sap that spills out, and she goes to each tree and she just starts sucking it dry, right?
Yeah.
Till they were drained, and the poison of death that was in her went into their tissues and withered them, root, branch, and leaf, and they died. And still she thirsted, and going to the wells of Arda, she drank them dry. But Ungoliant belched forth black vapors as she drank, and swelled to a shape so vast and hideous that Melkor was afraid. Not very ladylike.
No.
Not very ladylike.
Not very ladylike. And what's up with, killing trees? I mean, that seems like they can't fight back. It seems like a very cowardly thing to do.
Well, it's not about killing the trees. It's about.
Well, it's about thrusting Valinor in darkness. I get that, right?
And vengeance against the rest of the Valar, right?
Yeah.
Ungoliant doesn't care about any of that. Ungoliant just wants to, just hungers for the light.
Yeah, she
right.
Wants the light.
She hungers for everything.
She can't get any
into
better
the trees.
light than this.
That's right. Melkor just wants the vengeance, right? He wants to show up them, and this. I mean, this is that's the center of the Valar world, right?
Right.
And the elves and everybody, right? I mean, you can't get much more vengeful than that.
I know. Maybe I think that's probably what bothers me about it, because he obviously. I mean, this was the trees were the center of their universe, effectively. I mean, it was their life light.
Right.
And to just go and take, just stab the life out of them. It's just this just seems so wrong.
Agreed. Yeah.
So wrong. And I wanted to ask a question.
Mm-hmm.
That, didn't Melkor, the last time he attacked, or last time he came and made trouble, wasn't it during a feast? Wasn't it during Tulkas's wedding feast?
Yeah, when he knocked down the two lamps.
Yeah, when he knocked down the two lamps. Wasn't that during a feast as well?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you're right. If you go back to of the beginning of days,
because remember, Tulkas couldn't.
Yeah, then
fight
Tulkas
back.
slept, being weary and content, and
Right.
Yeah. Therefore the Valar were gathered upon Almarin, fearing no evil, and because of the light of Iluin, they did not perceive the shadow in the north that was cast from afar by Melkor, for he was grown dark as the night of the void. So Tulkas was snoring, and Melkor went and cast down the lights of Iluin and Ormal.
I'm just wondering if there's any significance in that he seems these last couple of times, it's either during or right around the time of a big feast or a festival that he chooses.
Yeah, well, you look for that opportunity when
people are distracted.
And when they're not expecting it, right?
Yeah. Surprise attack.
The Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor on
Sunday
a Sunday. on a Sunday morning, right?
That's true.
Not exactly the time of great vigilance. And, I think that probably, speaks even more. Melkor has no shame. He has no sense of, fair play, right?
That's true.
Not that we really thought he did it anyway, but, he has absolutely no sense of any of that, right?
Yeah.
He just has vengeance in mind, and however he needs to get it. He doesn't care if he comes off like a coward because he did it when no one else was watching. He just wants the vengeance, right?
Yeah. Nasty little booger.
Yeah, absolutely. And she swelled to a shape so vast and hideous that Melkor was afraid, right? So Ungoliant, gets so full of this stuff that Melkor is fearful for his own safety.
He's like, oh no, what have I done?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the monster. What monster have I created? Right.
Right, exactly. It's the Frankenstein moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with all of this, great darkness falls upon Valinor. And this is what I wanted to talk about. So the light failed, but the darkness that followed was more than the loss of light. And that so again, normally kind of we think of evil as this loss of lack of goodness.
Right.
But in this case, in that hour was made a darkness that seemed not lack, but a thing with being of its own. For it was indeed made by malice out of light, and it had power to pierce the eye and to enter heart and mind, and strangle the very will. So it's almost like this is its own subcreative, it's like the anti-subcreation, They take this light, this raw material, and they transform it into this nastiness, this just reeking, disgusting darkness.
Yeah.
That seems to choke everything around it.
Yeah. And that it says a thing with being of its own.
Right.
Which I think is what your first haiku was about.
Yeah. It was, yeah. So I think I just wanted to make, I guess, kind of put a marker there and be like, let's see how that plays out in the rest of the story and in other works, and the rest of Tolkien's works. Because I do think that normally he would have had a view. It'll just be it'll be interesting to see how his view of evil pans out. Because again, I think
Tolkien's view.
Yeah, because that's one of the key philosophical questions is why is evil, right? Remember Mythopoeia? There was that line where he said, I can't remember exactly, but it's like, of the origin of evil, I am not certain, but one thing I know for certain, that's that evil is, right? Evil exists.
Yes.
It's this mysterious thing that it does exist. But then again, even for even in a Judeo-Christian outlook, Satan himself, the most evil of all beings, is a created being, and he was created good.
Right.
He fell.
Yes, he fell from glory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyway, let's just put a marker there and see how that pans out, and if we pick up on anything more as far as later on in later chapters, as far as a darkness, an anti-light with its own being.
It's like a monster, all of its own.
Right, and so then it goes into Varda and Manwë's visions. Varda looks down, and Valmar had foundered, and behold, the shadows soaring up in sudden towers of gloom. Valmar had foundered in a deep sea of night. The holy mountain basically was the last thing standing in this sea of darkness. And there was silence in Valinor, and no sound could be heard.
So wait, is that Holy Mountain? Is that where they live?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the only thing that's left that they can see, or that's been left standing?
That they can see.
Okay, because it's so dark.
Right.
Yeah. It's like I can't see my hand in front of my face dark.
Exactly.
Okay.
Manwë from his high seat looked out, and his eyes alone pierced through the night, until they saw darkness beyond dark, which they could not penetrate, huge but far away, moving now northward with great speed, and he knew that Melkor had come and gone. So all Manwë can see with his great vision is simply that there's like this concentrated point of darkness that seems to be moving very fast to the north. And he says, there's Melkor.
Yeah. And
so he sends Tulkas and Orome to find them, but to no avail. In fact, it says that Orome, the hooves of Nahar, Orome's steed, Nahar, was the first, the fire that they struck from their movement was the first light that returned to Valinor. But when they caught up to the cloud of Ungoliant, the cloud of Ungoliant.
Is that because she's so fat? Is that why they're calling her?
Right, and I think just kind of the enveloping, like all the webs and everything that she spins, right?
Okay. Yeah.
The cloud of gloom.
Okay.
They were scattered and they knew not whither, and it says, Tulkas was as one caught in a black net at night, and he stood powerless and beat the air in vain. I just picture like Tulkas like trying, like, I need something to punch. Come on, you know?
Yeah.
Like just
flailing about.
Yeah, just flailing about.
Trying to get free.
This is what I do. I punch things. Come on, where are you? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it ends, Melkor had gone whither he would, and his vengeance was achieved. So, Valinor is now dark, and the two trees are dead.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah. So, what do you think? What do you think?
Depressing. It's very sad.
Yeah.
I always hate to see trees die, but even more so those trees.
Yes.
Because they were gold and they were silver and they were just the most beautiful thing.
Right.
In Valinor.
Yeah.
And it was really its life. Like, it was the source of life in Valinor.
Mm-hmm.
So by killing those trees, Melkor has effectively, sucked the life out of Valinor.
Yeah, I would say it was definitely like the source of spiritual life or spiritual, like communal life and all of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it gave light to the world, right?
Right.
So it's really interesting to think that it was both the source of actual light to the world, but also this like the source of like this beauteous spiritual light to the world.
And a joy.
Well. Yeah, joy is a good word.
And a hope, and now that's all gone.
Right.
So it's very sad.
Yeah. So. So I think that's all. I think that's all we had to cover.
Yeah, it was pretty. It's action packed, even though it's so short. It's really an action packed.
Yeah. Now the next one is a little longer, chapter, but still action packed. Very action packed. Lots of trouble, follow-on trouble rising from this. I think so. So what I wanted to say was this all gets me back to the whole fall, mortality, and the machine. Those three themes that Tolkien calls out in the preface, the letter he wrote that serves as the preface for this forward preface, whatever it is. I think, anyway, whichever one it is. He talks about fall, mortality, in the machine, and this is obviously a huge moment of fall, right?
Yeah.
Or an impending moment of fall, but also mortality, because the trees die.
Yes.
And
that's true.
It's going to lead to all of these other falls, as we'll see.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's like a domino effect.
It is, and you can kind of trace it back even to perhaps even to some of what Feanor did, in the previous chapter. Just with having, first of all, he created the Silmarils, which Melkor lusted for.
Right.
And then he was a jerk to so many people, and especially to his brothers, and it caused this thing that was a distraction away from realizing that Melkor is the guy who's causing all the problems.
Well, I hadn't thought of that.
So.
But yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Maybe Manwë wouldn't have felt the need to have that feast in the first place.
Right.
If Feanor had behaved himself.
Yeah. What last thought? What do you think about continuing along about Manwë? I mean, again, why in the world would you choose to have a party when I mean, I know that it's like, well, we always have a party. It was almost like, well, we always have a party this time of year.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It just, again, he doesn't seem like he just seems naive. He doesn't seem fully at his best in terms of being the ruler of the world, you know?
Yeah. I agree, but I still think his intentions are good, and I think he has a good heart, because having a party when you could potentially be at war at any minute, probably not the wisest decision. But then you think about the flip side. Well, what would have happened if they hadn't had the party, right? I mean, what if you cancel an annual party? Well, then people get nervous and they get scared and they're like, you know, like it was almost like a morale. I feel like it was almost like a morale booster and a way to try and just keep people's spirits up and not make them worry. Almost maintain order.
Yeah.
Now, whether or not that was the right call, I'm not saying one way or the other, but I don't think he's as naive as he may appear. I think he just really loves his peeps, and I think he's trying to keep them happy. And I think to a fault, though, obviously, because he's throwing a party when he should be on the lookout for Melkor. So
yeah, and I mean, I am, we're being a little bit of Monday morning quarterbacks here, but I mean, again, it just seems like there's this developing track record of Manwë not making the most prudent decisions. Mm-hmm. I get it. I get that you want to throw the party, but it's like, is that really you're basically telling people to let down their guard and come have a good time. And is that really the best thing to be doing when Melkor is out and on the loose and we don't know where he is, right?
Right.
If you knew he was up in Autumno, then okay.
Yeah,
or not in Autumno, but if you knew he was back,
if you knew where he was
in the north somewhere,
and you had eyes on him,
right?
Yeah.
Then yeah, okay, I get it, right? But again, I think there's a developing theme that I hadn't picked up on reading through this before, of Manwë not always being like, he's got his own growth to go through and his own kind of lessons he learns from foolish mistakes over time to maybe be the complete ruler that Iluvatar intends him to be.
Yeah, that's true. But it's interesting because even some of the other Valar, like Tulkas and Orome, right? They're for both, especially the last time, they're like, let's go get him, like action. And the mom was like, no, it's okay. So it's like the other Valar get it, right? But for some reason, Eru has chosen Manwë to be in charge.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. It's it does seem an odd choice. But
I wonder. The thought occurs to me. I wonder if Tolkien had any intention of likening Manwë to like Saint Peter, as being the prince of the apostles, right? Being the first among the apostles. Despite like his own shortcomings, yeah. I wonder if
bad decisions,
if that was a thought like that Tolkien had. He doesn't seem to make it this like big thing that he sticks up there, like Manwë is this buffoon or anything like that. Yeah. But at the same time, he's obviously, Manwë does not always make the best decisions. But there's also this lack of clarity around whether it's really Manwë doing things the way Manwë thinks they should be done, or whether he's actually doing what Iluvatar tells him to do. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Is Iluvatar actually telling, like, kind of encouraging Manwë to make certain decisions so that things can develop a certain way, right?
Oh.
Because Iluvatar obviously knows the entire plan.
Right, he knows the big picture.
Right. Exactly.
Right. And that's a good thought.
It's an interesting question of providence.
An interesting question, yeah.
I know. Fate and free will, all that sort of thing.
Right, and also, yeah, that's true. That's a good thought. I hadn't thought of it that way, but
yeah,
that's a good thought. I'll have to see what the next 2 chapters bring.
Let's see how it all pans out.
Yeah.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, let's call it a good podcast then.
All right. Let's do it.
All right. Well, so next time Chapter 9.
Chapter 9.
Of the Flight of the Noldor.
Yep.
And I think after that we will pause from the Silmarillion for some episodes. I don't know how many yet, but I'm hoping to get a start on Lord of the Rings.
Nice.
And really looking forward to that.
Yeah, me too.
So
me too.
I think we're also going to try and fit in on fairy stories at some point soon too.
Ooh.
So yeah.
I'll have to get my scholar cap out for that one.
Mm-hmm. It's worthwhile.
Oh wait, I don't own a scholar cap.
It's worthwhile. You can borrow mine.
Okay, sweet. Thanks.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for listening, everybody, and tune in next time for Chapter 9.
Yeah.
All right.
Do it.
Do it. Bye-bye.
Bye, y'all.
Please remember to check out truemyths.org for show notes as well as other Tolkien goodness. Also, we hope you're enjoying this podcast as much as we are enjoying making it. Please leave us a rating and feedback on iTunes. On the next podcast, we will discuss Chapter 9 of the Silmarillion, of the Flight of the Noldor, which heaps tragedy upon catastrophe. I hope you'll tune in. Thanks for listening.